Hi.
Hi.
We should probably start with an introduction.
Okay.
So you are Elle de Vries,
Elle de Vries.
but I found out that you have a full name that is not Elle.
Marielle.
Marielle. I like that.
Yeah, it's a pretty name. A lot of people got it wrong when I was a little girl, so I didn't like it as much. I've pretty much always had Mar or Rel or little nicknames.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now I'm older.
Right. And so you were telling me that in your, I guess in your professional social media world, you go by Elle, but in your personal life, you would prefer Marielle.
So, yes, after I awakened 41 to like a social media type of spiritual path,
Yeah.
then on social media, I went by Elle. So all my tribe members from spirituality call me Elle. And then my family and my older friends go by Marielle. So it's kind of 80% Elle right now.
Okay. Okay. But you prefer Marielle.
In Unity and,
Yeah.
and those kind of places,
Yeah.
yeah.
And your children call you mom.
Yeah, and they actually know me by Elle as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, love it. Well, hey, let's talk about then your the spirituality awakening, because I'm very curious about those things, because I had my own, but it wasn't the same as yours, and I don't think anybody's spiritual awareness or awakening is the same. From what I can tell, you have a couple of YouTube channels, Soul Star Visions,
Very
is that
good.
correct? And Light
Language healings.
Like language healings. All right. Which would you like to talk about first and explain? And maybe if you think we should go back to your awakening, we can start there.
Okay, so Soul Star Visions happened because of my awakening. So there we go. My awakening started by pretty much 2016. I was in a negative place because we had moved to the country. My kids were young. My family and friends weren't there. My partner was working at camp about 3 weeks out of a month. And so it was just me with a lot of land and a lot of quiet. And so I just kind of started going cabin fever. Mm-hmm. And so I just noticed my surroundings. Like even I got my first brand new car, and the window shield cracked like immediately. And Alberta, there's rocks on the highway, so they will not cover it, right? So this just started happening in my life. Weird things were changing. And so I just started being like, oh no, I'm not a negative person. I got to change something. And so I started meditating and detoxing and just Kundalini yoga. So come 2017, I wake up in the morning, there's sticky notes all over my kitchen. I don't know. I don't remember writing them at all. All 5th century Hindu text, profound quotes, learn Latin, all this weird stuff. And I was just like, what is going on, And I'm kind of hiding it shamefully, I don't want to be crazy.
Right.
And at the same time, it's not crazy text that's being shown on these papers, right? So I'm like, okay, I've had experience with psychic abilities when I was 24, ghosts, everything. So I knew it was something that was happening through the Kundalini yoga and things like this. So come 2018, I start experiencing fibromyalgia, heart chakra, pressure, and I can't quite understand what's happening, if it's like a heart attack or something. And so I start Googling all these things that are happening to me, and the ascension pops up, 25 ascension symptoms. I'm like, okay, I click on it. I have 24.
So these would be 25 different symptoms that would say something's going on in the...
Yeah,
okay.
Something about an ascension.
Yep.
I didn't even know what it was. I just clicked on it. And so I have 24 out of the 25 symptoms.
Right. So there might be something going on.
There's something going on. And so I have a best friend from age 12, and
Yep.
we've lived in Japan together. We've done everything together. And so I send it to her. I'm like, are you experiencing any of these things? And she's like, a couple. I said, I have 24 of those symptoms. And she's like, what's going on? I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
We start Googling the ascension and new earth and, all this galactic stuff is coming up. And I'm just like in agreement, resonance, like just, okay, why am I nodding my head to being from another planet? And, and so come July 7/7, the portal, a spirit just is around me very presently, communicating with me. And I'm like, okay, something has shifted. And so he was a multi-dimensional. He had passed over 3 weeks prior. And so he wasn't very good at communicating with the pendulum or things like that, but he would push over my broom and birds were communicating with me and there was a lot of weird stuff happening. And so then we fast forward 3 days to the 10th. We have this voice of God, let's say, and I had him talk to me one time when I was 7. And so, but this is like almost 40 years later, right? Mm-hmm. And so he talks to me for an hour, talks about my kids, talks about my path, talks about the name Elle and everything.
Okay, so just pause for a moment. So I have 2 questions here. One is when you say birds are communicating with you, what does that look like? And then when you say this person is speaking to you, what does that look like? Like how does this, is it a loud voice? Is it just silently to you? Like because I've never had experience like that. So I'm trying to understand it from somebody who would think that this is crazy.
So claircognitance, it's a deep sense of knowing.
Okay.
And then we have clairsensitence, which is a deep sense of feeling. So it's kind of a combination of the both, and it comes in telepathy. You don't hear it like a voice of you and I. There's an energy, there's an intention of wanting to know what it's saying and receiving it at the same time. It's very, very fast. Okay. So before you can say, I'm going to the store, you would say I, and you're receiving. This is what you're getting at the store. So it's very, very fast. So with the multidimensional, it wasn't like that, but I was definitely very aware of what he was doing. When I went in the car, my radio started, and then suddenly a song was playing, and then it would switch again, like there was just radioactive energy with that one. And so these kind of things were happening. With the birds it was like the same bird was when I got there to where I was going to meeting me at home it was just constantly following me around. Right. I had an elk outside my window when I woke up in the morning, just this big buck, and just staring right in my window for 3 hours. And just weird things were really coming. If I saw a butterfly, I'd be like, oh, what a beautiful butterfly, come back, just telepathically. And it would just turn around and land on my phone. And just weird things were magic.
So what are you like? So when this is happening, what are you thinking? Like, maybe, so because you've experienced something like this when you were younger, maybe it wasn't so freakish, but what are you thinking is going on with you?
And I'm going crazy.
Okay, so so at first there's this feeling of like, this isn't happening. Mm-hmm. This is crazy. What's going on? And you're not just like, hey, I'm a spiritual intuitive, right?
Not at all.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I had a book, wrote this stuff in there, and thankfully I had that best friend. Because she believed me 100%. Right.
So you had somebody that you could speak with that wasn't in the world of 100% doubt, was actually open to the fact that this could happen, and then you actually had somebody to bounce things off of.
Exactly. Right. And we'd experienced paranormal activity together before multiple times. We even went out in like a typhoon in Japan where we were like holding on to a bridge. We were crazy. We knew magic was in the air, and we did little love spells as kids too and stuff. We've always loved this stuff. We loved mediums and psychics. So there was definitely a belief already. It was just downloading so quickly.
Right. So you were open to it in a way.
Yeah, it was like a desire. Almost.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious whether if you know others, is that the same, that they are people that are open to that, to having that experience, and therefore, because you're open to it, you can actually begin to experience it or to see it around you. Whereas somebody like me who's more closed off to that, and I'll be honest, I'm not as open to that experience, and it's not like a judgment, but I'm just not, so I don't see it around me. Mm-hmm. Is there, do you think there's some truth to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you look for it, you'll start to see it for
Right,
sure.
Right. Okay.
Same with, you can start thinking, and a lot of people, we think like, I do like this pie,
Right.
And we think the words in our mind, but you need to just put that intention, right? Like when you're speaking, you have a lot of intention that you just show up and you trust, right?
Yeah.
It's the same when you're telepathically speaking to an energy. It's like, I want to connect with the frequency of forgiveness. So whatever's coming in at that moment is this frequency of healing. It's going to bring knowledge about how to forgive, how to, all that stuff is going to come in. So you start trusting in how powerful your intention is.
Right. So there's the word that comes to my mind is allowance, right? You allow yourself to experience it and to communicate it, as opposed to going, no, people are going to think I'm nuts. I'm never going to, right? So you're not pushing it down. You're actually opening up to it.
Yeah. You're wanting more.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, because before this happened, I was gifted a frequency of bliss, and I was driving and it went right down my spine, and I just like had the best smile, and my spine went like this, and I was just like, what was that?
Right.
I want more of that, is what I
Right.
said. And I think there was a July 1st, Canada's Day, before the 7/7 portal, I screamed the loudest I've ever screamed in my life. And I think the heavens opened, or I had a mild stroke. Something happened.
Right.
And then when this started happening, I literally thought I had a brain tumor. That's why I could communicate with the other dimensions.
Right. So what do you say to naysayers? Or do you even pay attention to it? No, you're just
I
like,
don't.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I'm very stubborn, so I can be very skeptic, and at the same time, I don't know, I'm really good with body language. So when I'm talking to someone, I might not even be listening to what they're saying. I'm just feeling what they're saying.
Right.
And so usually I'm very skeptic of people and ideas and stuff too. And then on the flip side, when they're so outrageous, there's just this thing of life is stranger than fiction.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've had so many people share UFO sightings and, stories with me. For some reason, strangers, they'll just speak of these events. It's like a safe place. They can feel that I'm going to believe them. And so when it comes to the skeptics, I just don't have time for them.
Right. Okay.
There's
so you just
so many believers, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You're going to focus on the stuff that makes your life work, as opposed to the things that wouldn't. Mm-hmm. That's probably a really good practice.
I think you need to,
Yeah.
or your belief's going to get challenged.
Right. And then you might actually not do anything.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we'll back up again. So you're living in Alberta at this time. Is that correct? Okay. So you start writing these notes everywhere. All of this stuff starts happening. You've got this friend that you communicate with, and then at some point, is there a boundary you cross where you're like, oh, this is what's going on, and now I'm going to step into it fully?
Yeah. So the voice of God comes in on the 10th, speaks to me for an hour. The next 3 days, very quiet. No multidimensional. Birds are quiet. Everything's quiet. I think everything's gone back to normal.
Right.
The 14th, 4 days after, my angel comes. And so he's a frequency of, his name's Finley, but you can't say his real name. It's like angels singing, so
Okay.
you can't pronounce it. And so I named him Finley. And he came in, he told me exactly where we were going. He told me about the quantum field, about my journey, my life path, and everything. And he stayed with me for 6 weeks straight.
Okay.
Almost 7.
And so is this like daily communication? Is it?
24/7.
Wow. And do you have a partner at this point? Are you
Which is thankfully gone 3 weeks out of a month.
right?
So there was only a week where I had to he would come into the living room and I would be talking out loud. And then Finley would be like, you need to learn telepathy. You need to speak within your mind. And then because I would get all flustered,
Right.
when my partner, I didn't want to be like talking to myself in the living room.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So, yeah. So,
Or what appeared to be talking to yourself.
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And he knew kind of what was happening to me. He's kind of open-minded. But again, if you don't experience it, you're probably thinking, okay, my partner's going crazy right now.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
I stressed her out too much or something.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I got to go back to camp.
Yeah. Are you going to be okay with the kids? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So with your partner though, were you explaining this? Did you tell them that this was going on?
To an extent.
Right.
To an extent.
Okay.
I couldn't tell him everything because, excuse me, because I was shown that our paths were together but separate. And so I knew that we weren't going to be together much longer.
Okay.
So it was kind of, I couldn't tell him everything.
Right. Well, what did that feel like when you get that kind of?
Honestly, it's kind of like, when you're in the boonies, you got 2 kids, you're 41, and you kind of think your life is over. You've given up your career,
Okay.
and so I'm going to live through my kids. This is kind of where I was. And so with this, I was shown like a whole new chapter starting for me, a lot of hope in a hopeless world. So it's powerful. And so I protected it. I didn't. Also with my relationship, it was kind of, I didn't want to split up a family. That was really important to me. And then when I saw the bigger picture, like, oh, he's got his own path. I have my own path. We're still together, but we're separate. And I have past lives with him. I've seen a lot of it even before I awakened at 33. I started seeing past lives with him. So
Okay.
he's
Wow.
an ally, right?
Yeah. 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 That must be. Yeah, and I didn't mean to go deep into your
Oh, yeah.
personal
That's
relationships
okay.
or anything, but that's interesting to me, and just having to manage your own emotions around that and still relate to somebody when you've got this stuff kind of cooking in your brain, right? What's that like? Like how?
You feel crazy.
Yeah, you feel okay. You feel crazy. All right, so so then you end up on Vancouver Island at some point, but I'm curious how you turned from that into, hey, I'm going to go on YouTube and start doing what it is you do, and maybe you can explain what each one of those pieces are that you do. But like, where did the idea for that come from? To take this to
Finley.
okay, so this spirit
angel,
or this
yeah.
angel, is that what we'll call Finley?
Yeah.
So this angel is talking to you and saying, hey, you got to get yourself a YouTube channel.
He didn't. He prepped it so well because I had a lot of logic minded, and I don't think people understand how logical minded I am. But I was sitting in front of the TV, and the kids were asleep. My partner was gone, and this image of my tarot cards just goes in front of my face, and I'm watching The Bachelor, and I'm literally going like, trying to see beyond this image that's blocking
Your view.
my view from the TV,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And so I start talking to this. I looked, we had guests for Canada's Day, and I had hid my tarot cards. And so I was like, I don't know where they are. And I'm talking to this image, and I'm literally swiping it out of my view. And then it will come back, my backpack's there, and then I'm like, no, I checked there. And then back to my show. And then in the back of the backpack or in the bottom of it comes in my vision. So I get up, I go to my room, and I'm like looking through the bag. I still don't see them. Go back. I'm like, nope, they're not there. Then right at the bottom of the backpack, it's shown. They're there. And I'm like, okay, fine. Go to my room, literally dumping everything out of this backpack, black leather pouch. There's my cards. And I was like, okay, you got my attention now.
Right.
Yeah. And so I had a pendulum in there, and that's how I started. I couldn't see him or hear him or anything. I just knew that something special was there.
Okay. So talk about so with the pendulum, how does that work? How would
So the pendulum is cool because depending who you're communicating with, the multidimensional just passed over three weeks before, so it really couldn't use the pendulum with him. Now with Finley, there was a massive energy. Archangel Michael too, just a massive energy that can be in the frequency, and you can really trust certain frequencies when you're tapped into them. So you're not actually asking questions as much as you're sensing the energy that's going on them. So you can have I think originally I had this for yes and this for no.
Right.
But with Finley, there was circles and back circles and forwards and maybe, and you're off point and this and that. So the energy, you could kind of see it and feel it at the same time.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you pull out the pendulum and
just start communicating. I want to know what he looks like. I want to know,
Okay.
because I'm very visual.
Right.
And so I want to know what he looks like. I want to have a name for him. I want to see him in my imagination. And so we start piecing that together. He starts communicating about my path, and I need more cards. I need to study telepathy. I'm going to be brought into a quantum field. So I would meditate every day for 2 weeks. And every time I come out of the meditation, why didn't you take me to the field? And he would just be like, you're not ready. You're not ready. And the day I gave up and I was like, I'm just going to meditate, boom, immediately in the field.
Right. So the day you kind of resigned to it was just gave it up.
I'm
let
just
it
going to
go.
have fun in meditation
Right,
again.
right. Okay. And so then you go to the field and you decide that you're going to now work with people, or
No, so the field was cool. Just green grass, almost pinkish sky,
Okay.
and just for miles. And then my angel was there. I'd already met my higher self earlier that year, and so we connected amongst the veil. So we had this veil, and when I put my hand on it, she came right away and put her hand on it. So I'd already met her, so she was there. And then my angel was there. And then there was a pyramid, 3-sided pyramid, and they sat at the long sides of the pyramid.
Yeah.
And then so I knew where to sit, right? I was on the 3rd side. Then there was the earth inside of there. And I was just questioning Finley, what are you doing? Are you healing the earth? Are you doing this? No, we're stabilizing. And so we would just sit there, stabilizing the earth and understanding the frequencies of the earth, where the polarities of the earth, everything was being shown. A lot of laws of the universe were also being shown.
Okay.
Cause and effect, all this stuff. And so that happened for about a week. And then probably the 8-8 portal, Archangel Metatron, I went to the energy field and he was there. And so my higher self got up and then merged in my body, and he sat down. And then within 2 weeks, so he knows everything about Earth.
Right.
So he taught me Akashic records, my past lives. I had a lot to do with ancient Egyptians, so I saw the battle and the fall of the planet. And so this is where miscommunication and spirituality can become bigger because of having being shown my history, even to Andromeda and things like this. So that stuff I don't talk about as often.
Right.
Yeah.
Why?
But it's interesting nonetheless, right?
Yeah.
And it's my truth, right? Because I felt it. I was there. It's like a real memory too.
Right.
And it's such a gift that you don't have to go through war to be gifted the feeling within an hour of going through all these different memories of an event. You come back, you can overcome it a lot faster than you could in this reality.
Right. Right. Okay. So getting back to, I'm trying to get to this place where you decide at some point that you are going to market yourself and say, "Hey, look what I can do," and I think I want to know that because that can't be easy. Like,
no, it wasn't.
so how do you get from I'm having this experience to all of a sudden I'm now going to like market myself and put myself out there to people where they can call on me for readings and like
Yeah, so it didn't actually happen like that.
Okay.
I had one tarot deck my whole life since age 15. And then when Finley came, within 2 months, I had 30 decks. And I was using them all.
So why?
We would go through full decks. I shuffle, they fly out. I'm having a full telepathic communication. And these cards, you can kind of see where the energy is trying to take you. So I just wanted new decks. And then suddenly it was like, you need to find your tribe. And so then I started my YouTube channel. I started just pick a cards and collective readings and things like that. And my voice shook and I wasn't on camera. And, I'm still feeling crazy, but I'd met people on YouTube. I met people
who were okay with your crazy,
which
right?
were crazy too.
Yeah, right. They were good with it, right?
Yeah. They were like, oh my gosh, this happened to me.
Yeah.
And I actually had a telepathic friend right before Finley came to me. I knew her for about a month. We were practicing telepathy, and we met each other on YouTube from a galactic speaker on there.
Okay.
And so when Finley came in, she kind of went through the experience with us. And when we were doing telepathy practice, we would ask. I'd be like, okay, my answer is this. Finley says this. He was right every time, like without fail. And then he stopped playing, and we're like, meh. Because it was just easier to know the right answer, right? So yeah, YouTube, it just kind of started where it was a safe place that I could express my crazy. And then suddenly people started asking me for readings. Right. And I was like, I'm not really a professional, blah, blah, blah. So I was charging very little, and you have to charge more, with all this stuff. And, they're building up my confidence. And then with the quantum, it did eventually turn into self-healing. And then it turned into bringing my friends and family into the quantum. And so by April of 2019, I started asking people on my YouTube channel, if you want to try the quantum, you can book in for a session. Right. So when I had
is that separate from either one of your YouTube channels?
So it's always something that I did in the behind scenes.
Okay.
Just because.
And this is what, somebody having a personal one-on-one reading or experience? Is that what that is?
No, it's something I do in a meditative state. So do you know Dolores Cannon?
I don't.
Okay, so she is a hypnotherapist, and she would hypnotize people, and she would go through them into past lives that they had in other dimensions and times and spaces. And she wrote many books about it. So I kind of do the opposite. I hypnotize myself. I go into a deep meditation, and then in the quantum field, so we have subatomic particles, right, where it can be in two places at the same time.
Yep.
So spirit will give me an aspect of you in the quantum field that I need to analyze to help you. So people will come to me and they're like, I'm stuck. I can't get rid of this thought or this memory. Spirit will put an aspect of them that I can see their chakras, what's all mixed up in their chakras, and how they can overcome what's keeping them stuck. And then through that process, an immense amount of awareness. It doesn't even matter if sometimes they come with pain. The pain is there in the mind. There's an aspect of the body you haven't had an aha moment.
Okay, so let me see if I can put this in understanding in my brain. So in this experience of the quantum, somebody comes to you with a problem, an issue of some kind. Do they let you know what that is? Like, I'm stuck, or I can't move my career forward, or do they just say, I've got this problem, I don't even know what it is, but I think you can help me?
In the beginning, I didn't want anything.
Right.
Now, because I know where people are on their spiritual journey, let me know what you need.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you will go into a meditation. They don't even have to be there.
No.
And from that, you will get a directive we'll call it that, of what they need to do to overcome whatever it is they're stuck in. And then they receive from you a detailed, hey, this is what I saw. You need to do X, Y, Z, and that's it.
Exactly. So I'll do paperwork. The analyst I'll be writing in the meditative state, and then after I make a video going through the paperwork, sometimes past lives come. These are really interesting for me when spirit, some people can't hear this reality, so they need to hear it from a past life stance that is repeating itself in this existence, and it's like 80% of what's being shown is happening to them in this.
Can you give
life.
an example of that? Do you
I
have
can.
one? Okay, because
So she's actually
life,
a good friend of me or a friend of mine now, because it was just so profound when it happened. So the past life was, she had lupus. Her husband cheated on her, and she was meant to heal lupus. She was meant to write documents of how to overcome and heal lupus, but instead she went down a path of how to catch a cheater with her writing, and she got a huge following. And then when she passed over, it was almost like Egyptian goddess. Everybody came to her funeral, and they were really happy with she had helped them nonetheless, right? So she tells me after we do this session, oh my gosh, I had an autoimmune disorder. I had lupus. I spent the last 7 years healing my lupus. Now I'm teaching other people how to heal their lupus. And her husband did cheat on her. And it gave her, oh my gosh, I'm doing what I was meant to do.
Right. Right. Oh, so you saw for her what she should be doing.
Yeah, like I didn't know her at all. And so I see this past life, not knowing it has anything to do. She was one of the first past lives that I did. So I had no idea that it was going to be that, like she actually had lupus. Her husband left her, and she's healed many people with lupus. So it was really profound.
Right.
There's never a dull moment in the quantum. That's for sure.
Okay, so this is so people don't need to be specific. Really, they can just come to you, and you're going to deliver something that now. Can somebody expect like a specific? Here's what you need to do. You need to do X, Y, and Z.
Oh yeah. There's clarity that definitely comes from it.
Okay.
There's a recognition of when something very truthful, and that's what comes through, is just pure absolute truth. And so if you can handle the truth, if you can move on from it, some people integrate in a day. It's crazy. It used to be usually 3 days I wouldn't hear from anybody.
Right.
And now it's like after a day, it's like there's been an evolution of people being comfortable with consciousness and things like that. And so, but sometimes I didn't hear back from somebody 3 months to 6 months, and I was always told not to push. Are you okay? What happened?
Just leave it be.
Yeah, and then they would write back.
Right. When
This
they're ready.
is what happened.
When they're ready.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When you said you can't handle the truth, I couldn't help but think of the movie, right?
Which one?
With Jack Nicholson, or
What is it called?
it's a military movie, and
you can't handle the truth. I remember.
As soon as you said that, I was like, my little movie brain goes to, hey, wait a second.
See, that's kind of like telepathy and clairaudience and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So you do have it.
I do. Yeah. So I was just like, oh wait, that's a great line. Okay, so that's the quantum. Now so you have 2 YouTube channels, and I have watched some of your stuff just in preparation,
weird,
and
right?
just Well, I wanted to kind of know what are what are we going to talk about, because I knew you had we had talked briefly months ago about how you can work with people, right? And I don't know that I fully got it, but I kind of got it, and so this was helpful for me. So in some of what I've seen, some of the videos you're not there, and you're talking, and it sounds like there's a group of people involved, and then on other videos you're there and you're speaking in this weird language, and I don't know what language it is, or if it is a language, or just sounds coming out. So can you break those down for me? What is the difference between the two?
Okay, so the aspect of having many people around, is that through channeling?
It sounded like there was a group session going on or something.
Okay, so that one is skipping my mind. You might have to, maybe it will come up. So light language is pretty much a love language. And so when you open up your heart and you go into your heart, and pretty much this is omitting your ego, right?
Okay.
Logic, control. You're putting this to the side and you're just trusting and wanting to dance with a frequency. Your drumming will be your light language.
Right.
As of now. This
Right.
might change when you get older,
Yeah.
you know, but everybody has a love language or a light language. So I'm an open channel to fifth dimensional and higher frequencies of light beings. So I did do mediumship for 6 months. I didn't like it. It's a lot of pain, guilt, shame. I'm sorry. I wish I did better frequency. It just breaks me. So I found out that I could override ghosts and loved ones going to their higher self. And so once I made that choice, I became a galactic channeler.
Okay.
And so through the galactic channeler, I can also see frequencies. So I can see like the purest form of forgiveness, love. And so we have to understand, humans, we attach things to truth, love, that aren't on the purest absolute form of those frequencies. So for example, love, we attach cheating, infidelity, we attach pain and suffering, and none of this has to actually do with love.
Okay.
It's very pure, right? And so we do this with consciousness too, but the difference with consciousness is you can't divide consciousness. There is no energy or matter within consciousness. Now, anything else will have a polarity.
Okay.
Consciousness, as far as my experience is, it's 0 point. And that's where every unique aspect of you is in me, where it starts, right? That initial spark. So where were we going on there? Oh, light language.
Yeah.
So because I can see the frequencies, so through intention, I will attach to a frequency for a moment of time. And so my dialect is like, so that was actually attached to another one right now, but it's similar.
Right.
And so through galactic frequencies, I've worked with like Lyran and Mantis. And so you've probably heard them in a video. They often come through a lot of key codes that will activate people. I've had through even like, meeting someone, they'll contact me after, oh my gosh, my vision started. You know, it's just kind of, it's in you. And if there's a desire, it will unlock. So we have key codes that are very fast. And then there's also hypnotic. A lot of people need to be overridden their control.
Right.
They need to go into a state of trust. And so normal people, light language will be their soul song. And you'll just feel love when they're sharing it. It's very different with my light language. It's very, there's a divine purpose behind it, is what it feels like.
Okay. And that's one channel, right? And then you have this, then you have the soul.
Soul Star Visions was my first channel.
Yeah.
And that was originally a card reading channel.
Okay.
And then my channeling, I started sharing it on there. Most of my videos are hidden right now. And so I've only put like my old pick of cards on that channel. And I'm just on a hiatus right now doing some other stuff. And then the light language too, I went to the purest form because through channeling, you have a lot of things that you're going through. Spirit will put me through certain things because I'll be getting clients that are going through it. So then they'll put me through it so I know how to heal it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and thank you for that, by the way. So what is this like? What does this feel like for you? Like to have, because it almost sounds like it could be a burden.
So my kids don't go to school.
Yeah.
And they're both awakened. They're very much not of this reality either. And yet they do very well with their online friends and their social existence as well. So we're a very tight-knit unit.
Yeah.
And so we have a sacred space at our house. So I don't really have people over. My business, everything's pretty much pre-recorded. I take on select clients that I'll do guidance, especially if they're transitioning, moving from a place to another place, doing a full Buddha where they're having a new name, a new job, and everything. They've just changed so much spiritually that they can't exist where they are
Yeah.
because people are holding them back, you know?
Yeah. I know
Yeah.
that experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say you homeschool your kids? Was that what you would tell people?
I
or you did-
non-school them.
You're non-school. Okay, great. And, we homeschooled, but I don't, it almost felt like non-school at times, but,
That's good.
but there was still like, hey,
Curriculum.
yeah, you still need to learn math and, there
Yeah.
was things like you need to understand right into the world. Okay. So, and is this what you do for work? Is
Yes, for 5 years now.
right. And it's supported you.
Yeah, surprisingly. There's good times and
Of course. Yeah.
and bad times, but we've always had a roof and our food and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And so I'm still trying to get my head around, like, what do you do when people just like want to tell you that they think you're, crazy and you're raising your kids the wrong way? Like how does that affect you, or does that even come up? Like, do you even walk in circles where that ends up happening? Because people love to give their opinion,
They
whether
really do.
whether you ask for it or not, right?
Yeah. So when I had started having kids, it was 2011.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think I was homeschooling or anything like that at that time. And then, so once I started, and we moved to the boonies, and, my mom and everything was concerned that I wasn't teaching them to read and all this. And I was like, they're just learning naturally. And, my youngest was reading better than I could at age 8. And then my oldest had the same dyslexia as I did. And I was really weird. Like, all my school until grade 3, I could look at a picture of a book and I knew exactly what the book was. So if they called on me, I could tell them about the story that I read, and I couldn't read.
Right.
Yeah. So my oldest is like this too. So where were we?
Oh, just the experience of people wanting to give their opinion about how you should raise
right.
your kids or how you should be.
So
or
since 2011, I left the workforce.
Right.
And so that was easy, right? And then my close friends have always been very open-minded and things like that. And so my family is very small also, so that helped.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of judgment.
Right. So you didn't subject yourself to a lot of that.
I didn't subject myself
right.
to it.
Because I think, you bring up a really good point, something that I've experienced in my own life, but something I also say a lot of is that, who's your tribe? Like, who are you going to allow to hang out with? Because, I've listened to people like Jim Rohn, who was he's passed away, but he was like a coach, right? A success coach is probably the best way to classify it. And one of his sayings was that you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most, right?
Makes sense.
So who you align yourself with and who you actually allow into your life as an influence is extremely important for not only for your own development, but how you even feel about yourself, right? Because if you have people that are constantly tearing you down, then how are you going to feel about yourself? Whereas if you have people that are like-minded, and maybe like-minded isn't the right word, but at least supportive and understand and are open to you experiencing life the way you experience it, then you don't have that negativity in the back of your mind, right? You don't have to fight so hard for it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because there must be doubt in you said that at the beginning, that you were wondering, am I crazy? Like, what is going on with this, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I've definitely chosen who I speak to.
Yeah.
And I'm always kind with strangers anyway. That there's always that consciousness within us, right? So I'll always have a smile and be excited and energy. But even places I go, I have to be very careful. I went to a sorrow and grief class one time. I can never return to a place like that, because I just absorb it like a sponge. At least I did. I get a lot stronger now to have that
Right.
boundary.
So your openness actually creates the environment where you can take on other people's stuff, and then you've got to battle it for yourself. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, the quantum too. Like if somebody has an ulcer, literally spirit has made me feel the pain of it, and I'll be like, "Oh, I got to do this quantum later," and I'll be laying down on the floor, and then I'll be like, "Okay, I'll just continue it. I'll just lay down on where they are, and I'll just heal them this way." And then I explain it to them, and they're like, "I have an ulcer. I end up on the floor, and I can't do anything." And I'm just like, "Wow, this is so wild," you know.
Right.
Even bipolar, they've made me feel what bipolar feels like and stuff like that, so I can understand the limitations of
Right. So that you have a place to
people's-
come from and express how they might manage themselves through that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like when you judge someone, you're like, "Oh, I wouldn't have done that ever." It's like
Right.
you don't know that.
Yeah.
You know, you're not in their shoes
Oh
at
yeah,
all.
isn't that a great? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I couldn't show or not show up for work. You know, I'm just going to work down here.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're like on the floor in pain, you can't show up to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy to come from that place. So I have to ask then, why unity? Like how?
My stepmother. So Catherine,
Yeah.
she's been coming here, I think, 10 years or so.
Yeah, okay.
So she came into my life at 15. She introduced me to hand healing, Reiki,
Yeah.
and pranic healing, which is color and directional healing. And so, yeah, so I never really lived with her because I left home at 15, but she's been a big part of here and there and everywhere. So returning to this town, she's always had an open invitation. Oh, come here. And we've always been spiritual too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But you could not come to unity. So I'm curious why, like from where you're at in your, understanding of spirituality, unity's not really like what you're talking about. I mean, from my perspective, and maybe I'm wrong. So
But
that's
it's
why I'm curious.
metaphysical.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And it really is, because quantum is very much new thought. And Nikola Tesla, he's one of the first frequencies that I channeled when I was channeling. And so it's funny because the library that Unity has, I found a book and I was learning about Florence Scovel-Shinn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I came across a book in the library
Good,
here.
because I can never remember her last
I know, I
name.
always say Shin. Sobel-Shinn, but I'm not sure. And I came across, and I was like, this is inspired by Florence. And I was like, okay, I need to take this home. And I flip it up or flip it open, and the first page I see is talking about a Charles Fillmore. And this is only like a month ago. And I've known Unity for 3 years. I didn't come for 2 years, but you know,
known of us,
I've been here and games night and stuff. And so anyway, I'm like, Charles Fillmore. And it sounded familiar because I love a guy, Brian Scott, on YouTube. He has meditation music, and he goes through a lot of Neville Goddard and a lot of people, and goes through their lectures and everything. And he's just a wonderful gem. And so anyway, I see this Charles Fillmore, and so I look him up on him. I had listened to him, thinking unity was unity,
Right.
not an actual place. And, you know, I pay attention, I don't pay attention kind of
Right.
thing. So I was like, oh, wow, well, when was he born? Well, he's way before Florence Shinn.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is happening? Like, I know why I've been drawn here. You know, there's,
Right.
as galactic as it is, this is also 2018. Logic has come back into my existence since then.
Right.
You know, so it's a memory of the past. Now it's very new age, and the way that we think and the intentions that we have. So I find that my spirituality is very much in sync with unity. Maybe not the history of religion.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I think one of the first things I heard you guys say 3 years ago was, your belief is your truth. And I was like, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not. Yeah. I mean, if I can, you know, as the assistant minister here, I'll speak from, you know, I'm not here to tell anybody what they should believe. You know, I've always had, and even when I was a musician, before I even, you know, because I had my own hit in the head for awakening, right? Where I was very non-spiritual, or so I thought. I think I was very spiritual. I just didn't have a place to kind of hone it in, if that makes any sense. But I always just had the mindset of like, hey, as long as you're not hurting anybody else or hurting yourself, I'm pretty much good with hanging out with, like, I don't need people to be any different than that.
Yeah.
I don't need them to be a certain way. Just don't be hurting others and don't hurt yourself. Because if that'll, I'll be worried about you if you want to hurt yourself. Like, I don't think that's a good idea. So I might do something in that, right? But other than that, it's like, you come to Unity, don't come to Unity. Go to a Catholic church, don't go to a Catholic church. I don't care.
It's so true, though, right?
Yeah.
And it's so freeing when you're at that place, too, where you're not trying to change someone, which is so impossible. And it's not that they don't change, but this is a new thought, too. You change yourself, your existence changes. The people around you change.
Yeah.
They don't actually maybe physically or mentally change, but the people around you might completely filter out to new people, too, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what I have seen and what I've even experienced in my own life is you just don't, and it's not something like, oh, I don't like that person anymore. It's more like, I don't really have anything to talk about with that person anymore. We don't, like, you can tell the small talk right away and it dries up pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And then there's nothing. There's no depth to the relationship anymore that might have fueled it before. That's gone. And so then you just drift apart. It doesn't have to be good or bad. It's just like, yeah, I don't, the people that I would lean on first and call first now are way different than 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to be the people 12 years ago aren't my go-to anymore. I have a whole new group of people that are my go-to.
And it might even change in like years. Yeah. How you have like this friend from 10 years ago comes back in your life, and it's like, it was like you didn't stop talking to each other at all, but you went through the same lessons, but you couldn't go through them together.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really wild because you get that support system. You almost don't go through a lesson deep enough to advance yourself into a newer person, because we have that almost like a false support system with certain friends where we coddle, we enable sadness, or
right.
just band-aid each other.
Or it's almost and it's almost like you don't really want to be real. Like how I can, I can't think of any, but I know there's many times where I could have said something that would have been much more helpful to that person, I believe, than the way I handled the situation, because you don't want to hurt their feelings, or you don't want to, it's like you play a game as opposed to being real about what you're truly seeing, because you're scared they're going to reject you, or you're, like something else is going to happen instead. And so I totally see what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And do you find, since you've changed your career and you've changed this spiritual path, that you're different now with how you express yourself, and does it come forward more? Like, I have this rule, if I'm not asked, I don't say. But if somebody asks me, I'm honest.
Right.
So
yeah, I try not to. I mean, so it's in the world of Unity and what I do here, I don't say anything unless somebody requests information or asks me for support. I'll just listen, mm-hmm. and I won't offer anything other than to be understanding, I guess is the best way to put it. Obviously with my kids and my wife, I'm probably give more information than I ever need to. I'm sure that's a given, that I could probably stand back a little more. But I will say that what has changed in my life the most is that I have more people that approach me now than ever before, that I think I have a different energy around me than I used to have. And this really came up with my own nieces and nephews. I had little kids are far more approachable with me now than they used to be.
Interesting.
And it's, I think, because I've lightened up. I'm not as serious as I used to. I'm still serious, but I'm not as serious as I used to be. Like,
Yeah, I don't know you before, right? So
Yeah.
I always think of you as such a little kid. I can see the mischievousness in your eyes when you're talking to, even when you're making your talks and stuff. There's a lot of fun,
right.
right? And so, yeah, it's very inviting to kids where there's a safe place where they can play.
Yeah, and I wasn't 10 years ago. I wasn't that guy. Like it's so I know there's been a shift within me just from all of this work. I mean, you have to, right? When
Yeah.
if you go in and look at yourself and you're not happy with who you are, and you're willing to address it as opposed to blame it off on something else, then I think things have to change, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So how can people, if somebody's interested in working with you or doing, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you or find you? Or
They can go to YouTube, Soul Star Visions, and Love or Light Language Healings. And you'll get all my information's in the description box, or you can email me at soulstarvisions@gmail.com. My website's kind of funny. It's soulstar-visions.yolasite.com. And so all my services are there. And yeah, it's probably the easiest way to contact.
well, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Marielle. Thank you. Thank you, Marielle, for coming in today.
Thank
I
you,
really
Thomas.
appreciate it. Yeah, it was great. It was a good conversation. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank
Yeah.
you.